Okay, so we have to agree there.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing with the Phoenician ships? I know I've been in and out. I've seen the video that was going on. Tell me a little, just in 30 seconds or so, some of the work that you've been doing with the Phoenician connection there.
Woo! Well, basically, so we found out about the Phoenician expedition because of Keith Johnson, who was in Florida, is a Heartland guy, and he was actually on the original, expedition and voyage. And so forth, but and of course our position is that they went south and went around Africa and then ended up in now what is basically the Gulf of Mexico area. But the second voyage I think is really equally as important, and that's the Mulekite voyage, basically leaving from around Carthage area, using a Phoenician ship with Mulek on board, possibly in his mommy's tummy, if not maybe just as a young king, that they made their way to America. And our thought is that they made their way into basically the Gulf of Mexico, and then they ended up going up the Mississippi River.
Yeah, I think that's very fascinating work that you've been doing on that. I love the fact that you even have a member of your audience here that was sailing on that ship. Do you understand? Boyd Tuttle there. Those of you who don't know Boyd, he just raised his hand, done some excellent work on this subject. I think that's an area that the two of us could work on, that maybe we could do an evidence or what we call internally a know-why that talks about some of the interesting connections between the Phoenicians and the Mulekites and perhaps coming across the Atlantic to arrive in America somewhere. Is that something you think that we could work on together?
Well, I tell you that the scholars don't believe. The scholars of the not of the church, but the scholars, the scientists and the archaeologists and so forth, they don't believe that there was any kind of ship interactions between the old world and the new world. And that's part of the reason why they say the Book of Mormon can't be true, because there was no ancient voyages like that. Because they had the Phoenicians. They know the Phoenicians were there in the Mediterranean, but there's no evidence that they ever came to America unless you actually accept the Book of Mormon as history. But so I think what we're saying is that if we're accepting the Book of Mormon as history, and the Phoenicians are then the people who were who were there, the people coming from Tunisia, and the Phoenicia ship actually proves that not only could they do it, but it's now been done in a 600 BC ship. Do you think history needs to be changed?
Well, I would think so. There's a lot of connections besides just that as well. You've got biological connections with fruits. You've got connections as it relates to even language similarities and such, that there does appear to have been old world and new world contact. And those are areas that, and up until just a couple of decades ago, people did not want to really give much credence to. But with the work of very serious scholars on that, including those in the church, that theory is getting a lot more accepted. And it's a theory that I know that you also believe in as well. And I'd love to do some work with you in trying to explore some ways that we could publish something together.
Accepted. All right. Yeah, these voyages, we both agree where they basically started off with. We may not agree on exactly the route, but how they got there, Lehi's journey down the Red Sea, that's something we can both sink our teeth into and promote. So again, it's just a matter of whether it's North and South America or the North and South of the United States. And this happened right after Joseph Smith had the revelation about the coming Civil War, which divided the North and South. So, anyway, different ways of looking at things, but we're using a lot of the same basic data and coming to different conclusions. But if we can, how do you feel about offering, more, in other words, giving multiple competing hypotheses as something we can work on in the future?
Yeah, and that's why I've come here today, is I want to be able to find ways that we can work together. And I think this first discussion about looking at transoceanic travel, looking at Mulekite Phoenician connection is a great first start. As to whether we take it to the next level, I call that phase 2, and talk about working hypotheses together, different working hypotheses together. I won't say no. We'll see how that goes. I'm not quite ready to say that yet, but certainly, my hope is that we could work closely together and productively to come up with something that I think all of us will be proud of as it relates to the old world, new world connections.
All right. Well, we got to finish this up, but may I just finish up by just saying, you know, if we ever could get both sides together, we'd be unstoppable. We'd be able to take the book of Mormon to the world like never before. And so hopefully we can figure out how we can